All right, good morning. We are 4 days away from Mr. David Icke being back in the building. June 14th, we'll be sitting down at 5 p.m. UK time to get inside this man's head and see if he can provide us some clarity, some intel, some insight into the madness that we see going on lately. One name that David consistently brings up is George Soros. Now, again, I have never been, and I'm still not, a conspiracy theorist. I honestly have much better things to do than try to go down rabbit holes and figure out who did what and who met at some group in the forest or whatever. And for most of my life, I knew Soros as this brilliant financier that made tons of money by squeezing governments and playing on currencies and that kind of thing. But in his later years, he spent his billions giving it to charities, okay? But one thing I've realized about billionaires, and I've met a few, is that they never stop playing their game. And from everything that I've gathered, especially talking to David and even through my own research, is that this man uses that money to advance his agendas. And that could mean an election here in the UK. Maybe in the last election, he heavily funded the party that didn't win. That can mean donating to certain parties, including funneling money into Black Lives Matter, including funding money into Ukraine, if you remember, about 6 or 7 years ago when Vice was recording all of the action that was happening in the riots in Ukraine. Soros was heavily involved in that, oftentimes even funding some of those protesters with Bitcoin. Now, again, I don't spend my time doing this stuff, and I don't choose to, and I never will. I don't go after the chemtrails and the moon landing and Lord knows the flat earth. I don't do any of that stuff. But I do try to listen to people that have ideas and reason. And the more I hear about the stuff that George does, the more I wonder how much of our own opinion is decided by this man and his digital footprint, the money that he puts out there for certain organizations to advance ultimately his agenda and whatever he wants to see in this world. Now, there's a lot of billionaires out there that seem to want to do a lot of things with this world, whether it's Mr. Bill Gates or Mr. Soros, or there's a lot of others. And I just think we should be wary about who is pulling the strings at the top, of the marionette, as they say. And a lot of times we're on the ground saying, I'm making this decision, but you're making this decision based on video you've seen, based on digital imagery that might get you to feel a certain way to force you to act for someone else's agenda. And I just want us all to be aware of that before we go do what we got to do. Now, you might hear some of these ideas that David's going to drop on Sunday and say, I don't give a shit. I'm still going to do what I got to do. Good. That's your choice as an adult. But what I want to try to provide on Sunday is a forum where David can express some ideas that you can consider, and then you can then consider how you want to act and maybe think about acting in a way that has a longer horizon, a longer game, something that in the end will get you what you want, or maybe your children or your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren, what you want out there. So I think it's a great time to take a pause, to maybe stop reacting and start being proactive, to stop using tactics like I'm going to go do this because they did this to me, and start using strategy and saying, actually, I'm going to change the entire way I spend my money. I'm going to change the entire way I do X, Y, and Z, the entire way I consume digital media. That might be something more intelligent. Thinking about voting in the long run, all these things that maybe could make a difference, or not. And look, this is what we're trying to do here. And again, I still think it's so crucial that we can have these conversations, that we can put these messages out there. There's a lot of people saying that we can't. Obviously, I will not be streaming this conversation on the major platforms because we can't. We're literally not allowed to. We have to do it on the Digital Freedom Platform, and that's where we're going to be with David on Sunday. But again, it's for you to consider some of the things going on behind the scenes. And look, whether in the past it was Russian trolls controlling the 2016 election, Chinese trolls that sent out text messages to people in New York saying there was going to be martial law, there's a lot of fuckery, if I could say so, going on in the digital world and in the political world. Just don't be a pawn in their agenda. That's what I want you to think about. And think about when you come on Sunday, and think about when you get other people to come watch David Icke. So that's the deal. It's going to be at freedomplatform.tv or londonreal.tv/Icke 5 o'clock on UK time on Sunday, 12 noon Eastern time. It's going to be epic. Be there, screen record it, bury it, because David rarely disappoints, and he's got some really interesting ideas on some of the things that we've been seeing happening around the world with everything. The riots, the protests, Black Lives Matter, defunding the police, all that stuff are things that David wants to cover, and I'm excited to have him here. So that's it. We've also got a couple other guests in the studio. Nobel Prize winner tomorrow. I got Alan Dershowitz tonight, a fascinating criminal lawyer. All that's kicking off on the Digital Freedom platform. Go there. 5 o'clock p.m. is when we usually stream. And that's what we're doing. We're doing this. We're continuing to stream regardless of the censoring we've experienced on the platforms and the deplatforming, because this is what we do, and this is what we'll always do. And I appreciate all of you. I spent a long run yesterday on Vicky Park. Must have been 10 or 12 people came up to me and said, Brian, we really appreciate what you do. Keep fighting. And I really appreciate all of you. So thank you so much. We will. And we will see you on Sunday with David Icke, because we want to show the world that we will not be silenced, we will not be censored, and we will not be stopped. I'll see you Sunday.